And we had to jump on, y'all, because there was some news that dropped today that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. I know I was one of them that didn't, but New York Liberty announced that Sandy Brondello's contract will not be renewed.
New York Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello was coming off of back-to-back finals appearances, but she was fired today after this season's first-round knockout. We have WNBA and Liberty beat writer for the Post, Madeline Kinney.
For the 2026 season, and just a little background on Brondello for those who may not know, 107 wins to 53 losses in 4 seasons, the winningest coach in Liberty history. And of course, they won the championship last year.
For today's Liberty Lately, Madeline, there's a lot going on lately with the Liberty. We all know New York is a different animal when it comes to coaching, whether it's Knicks, Giants, Yankees.
Did you hear the Liberty just fired the most successful coach in their history? That's right, Sandy Brondello is out, and not because of a bad season. ESPN insiders say this was brewing for months, tied to branding, Wall Street mentality, and a title or bust demand. Now the question is, if a championship isn't enough security for a coach, how safe is Caitlin Clark or any star under this type of ownership mindset? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. Costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Imagine this, you guide a team from being overlooked into becoming a juggernaut, you win a championship, you deliver one of the best regular seasons the league has seen at 27-7, and instead of being celebrated, you're pulled into meetings where the message is, enjoy it now because your job might not exist tomorrow. That's exactly what happened with Sandy Brondello and the New York Liberty, and it shocked a lot of people on the outside, even though, according to ESPN, ownership had already decided things were going to end this way before the playoffs tipped off. See, Brondello wasn't just any coach. This was someone who came in when the Liberty were still trying to shake off years of irrelevance and inconsistency. She didn't just steady the ship, she overhauled the entire blueprint.
They were out in the first round this year. There's been a lot of reaction here, Erica. And what was your reaction? Are you shocked by this?
I am. I will say that shocked, but maybe not completely surprised.
It's a what have you done for me lately type sports city. So do you think that's why Sandy was fired?
I think it was in part of that. I mean, you're in the winning business, and everyone says for coaches, you're hired to get fired, very much so. And so after winning the championship last year,
and that's only because, I mean, in the New York market, any little blip and a coach, a player, a GM, there's a lot of conversation and fodder, right, around what needs to happen because, New York is seen as this championship.
Sandy was actually given a 2-year contract extension that had a team option for 2026. And so ultimately they decided not to renew her contract for next season. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact the team underperformed this season. Yes, they had a lot of injuries.
Free agents wanted to come to New York because they saw a system that could actually win. The team went from flirting with the middle of the pack to marching into the finals and finally hoisting the trophy. And then the next season, they followed up with a regular season record that any front office would dream of. Normally, that kind of success buys you years of security, but in New York, apparently not. Instead, ESPN reports management had drawn a line in the sand months earlier. It wasn't about whether the team was growing, whether the locker room trusted their coach, or even how dominant they looked on the stat sheet. It was framed as championship or bust, as if defending a title wasn't enough unless it came in the exact flashiest way possible. That creates a completely different kind of tension. It turns every practice, every lineup decision, every playoff game into a referendum on someone's job security. And here's where it gets wild. This wasn't even about basketball. This was about ownership treating the Liberty like a stock ticker, not a basketball team. The ownership group, which comes from Wall Street money, has been focused more on market share, branding buzz, and staying in headlines than on stability. ESPN's reporting made it clear, success by itself didn't matter unless it came attached to dominance that could be sold as a product. Put it this way, they weren't chasing wins, they were chasing narrative. Look at the moves off the court. The Liberty invested big in their facilities, in top-level medical care, and in promotion campaigns across the city. All of that looks great for players and fans, but it also set the expectation that nothing short of perfection would suffice. And when Brondello's championship wasn't enough, there were even rumors swirling that NBA assistants could slide into her chair purely for the headline value, as if attaching a big NBA name to the sideline automatically made the franchise more legitimate. That's not not about coaching quality, that's about flash. But inside the locker room, different story. Breanna Stewart, one of the faces of the league, made it clear she supported Sandy. Other players privately felt blindsided. Even rival coaches couldn't help themselves, with Becky Hammon straight up calling the move questionable. That tells you the disconnect wasn't with the roster or the basketball community, it was strictly a front office power play. When the people actually grinding out the game see value in their coach.
Town and is in some ways, but the expectations, whether the performance is where it needs to be for championships, the expectation is always there. And so a team that was struggling so mightily,
injuries to star and key players, but at the same time, that was a stacked roster, and she just didn't get the most out of what they wanted to with that team. And so I think it came down to the team's overall underperforming. We talked a lot about effort throughout the season.
Had as many injuries as they did, with both Jonquel Jones and Breanna Stewart having 13 consecutive games missed. I mean, that's huge. That's decimating their backcourt. That being said, and I've said this before,
you also have to find out a way to untap that to some degree. And so I think that there's layers to this. I think it's multifaceted. There's not one game or one moment that you can pin to say that was it. Perhaps, though, I will say maybe game 2.
And it's the suits that don't, that's where trust starts to fracture fast. A perfect analogy is this: imagine you're running a strong stock portfolio. All your investments are up, your foundation is solid, and anyone with patience can see growth continuing. But instead of recognizing that, you start selling off assets because they aren't creating hype fast enough. That's what New York did with Brondello. They chose short-term splash over long-term stability. That might excite investors, but for a team, it destabilizes everything. And that's why ESPN framed this not just as a firing, but as a bigger identity crisis. Was this really about results, or was it about ownership needing to prove to the market that they're different? Because make no mistake, this wasn't simply a coaching change. It was a statement of power, a reminder from the top that stability and loyalty are expendable in the pursuit of constant relevance. Here's the chilling part. If a coach with a title and a 27-7 record isn't safe, what does that say about everyone else in the league?
The injuries didn't seem to be the entire story of the New York Liberty, and I do think that mental fatigue can come from physical fatigue or just working yourself back. Even if you're cleared physically, that doesn't always mean that your mind.
Blowout at home was the final straw, but I think it was a culmination of things that happened throughout the regular season and heading into the playoffs. And obviously a first round exit after winning a title is not a great follow-up.
And body are connected in that you can execute in the way you were able to pre-injury. So I just want to leave space for that. However, this team was not rebounding particularly well. Early on, they were having trouble at the free throw line. We saw some players missing.
But the news of her getting fired, like, that just completely just threw me off. Like, I was focused on Jackson Dart becoming the new Giants quarterback 1 this morning, but her being fired. We're talking back-to-back finals and a championship.
For players, for assistants, for future stars, it signals that loyalty doesn't matter when business interests take center stage. And that ripples beyond New York. It sets a precedent that other front offices across the league might feel emboldened to copy. So here we are. The firing of Sandy Brondello represents more than a surprising headline. It shows the fragile balance between basketball and business in this growing league. And when you think about that connection, you realize how much pressure now shifts onto players, especially someone like Caitlin Clark, who's already being shaped into the face of the next era. If this is how ownership treats proven winners, how secure will rising stars be when the expectations only get louder? This firing exposed something bigger than just one coach losing her job. It showed how quick decisions from the top can damage trust between the people who actually play and coach and the fans that keep the sport growing. That's dangerous at a time when the WNBA is breaking through nationally. And think about this, if Sandy Brondello with her record isn't safe, what does that mean for Caitlin Clark stepping into the spotlight? Protecting young stars from unstable leadership isn't optional anymore. So tell me, did the Liberty chase headlines over stability, and would you root for Sandy's revenge tour?